So I normally don't do the sheath making portion for these knives, mainly for time and also just because it gets a little repetitive. But for this mountain man sheath, I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm kind of trying to do a historically accurate pouch style sheath with the belt loop in here. So you saw me drilling out the holes, making a chisel cut to complete that slit. I know that there is slit chisels for leatherworking that are made for that, but I thought I could make do with what I had. The welt is pretty big in here, so that's about the size of it there, and I'm going to go through with rivets and rivet it together instead of using stitching. And I did use barge cement and glue that all together. That's why it's staying put right now as I'm doing that work. So I'm pretty happy with the slit right now. I'd like to burnish that out, slick that up a bit, and so what I'm going to do for that, this is an old staining brush. It's all dry and crusty, and it seems to be a good width there. So I'm going to cut off this head here, put this in the drill press, and see if I can burnish the inside of this slit here. I got some warm water and I'm wetting down the leather here, getting it all on the inside. Let's see if this works. Okay, so not too shabby. It actually seemed to work, so I'm happy with that. So I figured out where I wanted my rivet pattern to be, and I marked it with just a little pencil dot. I'm going to have a staggered 2 layers going down the side. I'm going to go back through and just widen up all these holes with my leather awl that's on the, this is actually a Boy Scout knife. Old Imperial USA made official Boy Scout knife. I don't believe they make them like they used to, but this has got the best leather awl that I've ever had on a tool. So we'll just go through and open that up. This was my very first knife that I ever owned, that my dad gave me, so it's a special tool to me, and it's great to be able to still use it. Okay, and I've got these 2-piece brass rivets that I'm going to be using. These are the really the only ones I could find that were long enough to go through the 3 pieces of leather like I needed to. You gotta be real careful with these not to bend them. So real gentle hammer strokes just to work them in. Okay, so there we go. Got it all riveted up. We'll do a little test fit here and see how it fits in there. So if we compare that to my pattern, yeah, right about in there is where I wanted the guard to kind of sit. So I've got a little shelf there for it. So that all seems to be working out just as I intended. So awesome, happy about that. So you can get a full grip on the back of the antler. So we're gonna wet this down. I got some warm water here, so we're gonna wet this all down. I'm gonna do a little bit of molding. So this is just the back of my my edging tool here. It's nice and rounded off, so I like to use this. I'm just gonna do a little bit like that. So that's the top of the guard. we'll just compress down all of that. Do a little bit like this. Like that. So there we go. That goes a long way as far as transforming this and making it look a lot nicer. So go ahead and do the other side. Okay, so that water dries pretty quick, but it really does a nice job of locking that in right around the guard, so I'm happy with that. So next thing to do is just stain the leather, because it's just the you know, the raw leather. So what I like to use neatsfoot oil, and this is by Bickmore. It's actually a Michigan company, so this is stuff made right here in my home state. So I like to buy American, and when I can, I like to buy Michigan made products. But this just gives it real nice kind of red color. And you just, you know, layer it up little by little. And this is how I stain all my leather, between this and birch oil that I make, or linseed oil. This is all I do for my leather stain. Okay, so we'll check back in a few days, and I'll show you how this is doing. Okay, so the neatsfoot oil has dried on the leather here. When you get it on the inside of it, it seeps in from the other side, and that's why it gets darker around the mouth of the sheath, which is cool. So I'm going to put some of my homemade birch oil on here. Kind of stiffens up, and so I heat it up by putting hot water in a pot, and I just set that in the pot, let that warm up that way, leave it in there, you know, 5-10 minutes. Okay, so we got our goo here, so I'm going to put it on my fingers, and we're just going to kind of dab it a bit, and then we got to work it in. If you let this stuff sit and get all blotchy, it can be a problem. So it's still pretty chilly in here in Michigan. It's about 40 degrees. So this stuff is not spreading as easy. And one trick I found, I'll use linseed oil to kind of cut the birch oil, and that helps spread it around. It's also a good way to help get it off your hands. So there we go. That helps give you a much more even finish, so you don't get the same kind of colors. You know, it's not as dark of a color. If you get some, you know, really fresh stuff that goes on there nice and easy. But this stuff can be sort of inconsistent, so. So that just kind of gives it a little bit darker, browner color, but it's a very rich coloration, so I like using it. And especially for the kind of knives that I like to make, like these Mountain Man knives, you know, it kind of gives it that, it gives it sort of a different look than your regular store-bought colorations. So I'm going to try directly applying the linseed oil into the birch oil. We'll see if that does anything. This one's kind of at the end of its lifespan anyways, so yeah, let's see. Alright, there we go. So all we gotta do left is burnish the edge. Okay, so I put a second coat of birch oil and linseed oil on here, so it's darkened up quite a bit. So last thing to do now is just burnish this edge here. So I'm going to start by just wetting it down with regular water. And then I've got a burnishing wheel. This is actually a piece of birch bark that I hollowed out and grooved out for the width of my knives. So again, this is something that you can buy, but I ended up just making it, and it seems to be working all right. I got it attached to my bench grinder here. Nice and smooth. So now I'm going to go back through with some beeswax, just to kind of further seal up the end of that leather. So just rub it all over the welt. Heat from the friction will melt it into the leather. There we go.